Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling something really foundational, Git and GitHub, especially for those of you looking to, get a grip on your projects.
Yeah, whether you're deep in code or maybe orchestrating robots with RPA.
Exactly. And what's really cool here, I think, is how Git gives you this power, almost like a time machine for your project, right?
Absolutely. You can see exactly how things changed, who changed them, and, crucially, go back if you need to. It's about control and understanding that evolution.
That's it, precisely. It might sound a bit technical, maybe a bit under the hood, but honestly, this is about having a safety net for every single change you make.
And collaboration, too, if you're working with others. It changes the game.
Oh, definitely. Even if you're flying solo right now, learning this stuff, it's an investment. Trust me, it pays off down the road. Peace of mind, knowing your work is safe and tracked.
Yeah, think about the alternative. Multiple people editing things, emailing versions back and forth. It gets messy fast. Git and GitHub bring, well, sanity to that.
Okay, so let's clear up one common point of confusion first. Git versus GitHub. What's the deal there?
Right. So Git is the actual tool. It's the version control system itself running on your computer. Open source, created back in 2005, actually. It's the engine doing the tracking.
The engine, I like that. And GitHub.
GitHub came a bit later, 2008. It's a web platform like a website that's built around Git. It hosts your Git repositories online.
So Git is the local librarian keeping meticulous notes.
On your machine.
And GitHub is like the big shared online library building where you can store copies and let others check them out.
Exactly. Perfect analogy. You can use Git all by itself, locally, no internet needed, but you fundamentally need Git to use GitHub.
Right, because GitHub just provides the online space and tools for Git repositories.
Yeah.
It's what we call a remote, right? A place to push your local stuff to.
Precisely. And there are others too, like GitLab or Bitbucket. They're all remote online homes for your Git projects. But the core version tracking magic, that's all Git.
So why bother with GitHub then, if Git works locally?
Two big reasons.
Hmm?
Collaboration and backup. It makes working together so much smoother, and it gives you that secure offsite copy of everything, your entire project history, safe in the cloud.
Gotcha. Okay, so our mission for this deep dive is pretty straightforward. We want to give you a solid, beginner-friendly understanding of Git and GitHub.
And we'll really focus on why this matters for RPA development, especially with tools like UiPath, and how you actually use it. Setting things up, basic commands, the whole deal.
Yeah, because if you're building automations, believe me, version control is just as critical as for any software project. Maybe even more so sometimes, with all the moving parts.
Definitely helps manage that complexity. Okay, where do we start?
All right, let's roll up our sleeves. First steps. You need to install Git on your computer, and you'll need an account on github.com. Simple enough. Now, there are visual tools, GUIs, for Git, but we're going to focus mainly on the command line, the terminal.
Yeah, it might look a bit old school, maybe intimidating.
It can seem that way, but honestly, it's often the clearest way to learn the core concepts, and most tutorials and help you find online will use the command line anyway, so it's a good foundation.
Agreed. It gives you that direct line to Git, understanding its language.
Okay, so Git's installed. Your project journey starts with creating a local repository, or repo. It's just a special folder where Git tracks everything.
Right.
You open your terminal, you navigate using the cd command, like cd my awesome RPA project, into your project's main folder.
Okay.
Then, inside that folder, you type one simple command, git init.
Git init, and boom.
Boom. Git sets up its hidden .git directory inside. That's its brain, where all the history lives. Git is now officially watching that project folder.
That hidden.git folder is key. That's where all the magic happens behind the scenes.
Now, just doing git it doesn't mean Git tracks every file automatically. You got to tell it which files matter.
Right, it needs specifics.
So say you create a new file,
Yeah.
maybe in the terminal with touchmyconfig.json or just by saving it from UiPath. Git sees it, but it's untracked.
How do you know what Git sees?
Ah, great question. You use git status. That's probably the command you'll use most often. It tells you everything. New files, files you've changed, files Git isn't tracking yet. It's your dashboard.
Git status, your best friend for figuring out what's going on. Okay.
This brings us to a really important concept, the staging area, or sometimes called the index.
The staging area, like a waiting room.
Kind of. It's like a prep area. Before you take a permanent snapshot, which Git calls a commit, you gather the specific changes you want in that snapshot into the staging area.
So a commit is the actual save point, like a photo of your project at that moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a record of the changes you decided to save. And because you have all these commits, you can rewind your project to any previous commit, like flipping through a photo album.
And the staging area lets you choose exactly what goes into each photo, right? So you can group related changes together in one commit. Makes sense.
Precisely. So you've modified a workflow, maybe added that myconfig.json. You run git status. It shows myconfig.json as untracked, or maybe other files as modified.
Yes.
To get them ready for the commit, you use git add. So git add myconfig.json. Or if you changed main.xaml, you do git add main.xaml.
Can you add multiple files?
Yep. You can list them. Git add myconfig.json main.xaml. Or a common shortcut is git add.ht, which adds all new and modified files in the current directory and subdirectories. Use that one carefully, though.
Got it. So git add puts things in the staging area. It doesn't save them yet.
Correct. It just prepares them. If you run git status again after git add, you'll see those files listed under changes to be committed. They're ready for their snapshot.
Okay. Staged and ready. How do we take the picture?
With git commit, but crucially, you need to add a message explaining what you did. Use the netshim flag for that. So git commit, added configuration file, and updated main workflow.
The commit message. Important.
Super important. Make them clear and concise. Think of them as notes to your future self or your teammates.
Yeah.
Why was this change made? Good messages save so much time later trying to figure things out.
Like leaving helpful breadcrumbs through the project's history. Definitely.
Okay, next big concept, branches. This is where Git gets really powerful for managing work.
Branches. Like parallel universes for your code.
Yeah, kind of like that. Imagine you want to try out a big new feature in your RPA bot or fix a tricky bug, but you don't want to mess up the main version that's working okay.
Right. You need a safe space to experiment.
That's a branch. You create a separate line of development. You can make changes, break things, fix things, all on that branch, and it doesn't affect your main project line until you're ready. Git calls it a lightweight movable pointer to a commit.
So it's just like a label pointing to a specific save point, and it moves along as you make new commits on that branch.
You got it. And creating one is easy. If you're on your main line, just type git checkout-b new branch name.
Checkout-b. So like git checkout-b feature add new report.
Perfect example. That command does two things. Creates the new branch called feature add new report and switches you over to it immediately. Now, any commits you make are on this new branch.
And how do I see all my branches?
Simple. Git branch. It lists them all and puts a little asterisk next to the one you're currently on.
Okay. And what about that main branch? You hear master sometimes too.
Yeah, historically it was often called master. Now, you'll see main or primary used much more often. It's convention, really.
Right.
But the idea is that this branch represents the stable, official, maybe production-ready version of your project.
The source of truth, sort of. Got it.
Okay, so we've been busy working locally, committing changes, maybe making branches. Now, how do we get this online? Back to GitHub.
Right, the remote repository.
First step is usually creating an empty repository on GitHub. You log in to github.com, hit that new repository button.
Give it a good name, maybe match your local project holder name.
Good idea. Like an iPath invoice processor. Add a description if you want, keep it public or make it private. Then click Create.
And GitHub gives you an empty box, basically, ready for your local project.
Exactly. And it usually gives you instructions right there. If you already started your project locally with Git, init, and made commits, you'll look for the bit that says something like, or push an existing repository from the command line.
The connection step.
Yep. There'll be a command like git remote add origin repository URL. That URL is the web address of the GitHub repo you just created.
And origin, that's just a nickname.
Yeah, it's the standard default name for your main remote repository. Just a shortcut so you don't have to type the whole URL every time. It tells your local Git where its online counterpart lives.
Git remote add origin URL. Links local to remote. Makes sense.
Once that link is set up, you can send your local work up to GitHub. That's called pushing.
Git push.
Almost. You usually need to specify where you're pushing your remote origin and what you're pushing, which branch. So git push origin main would push your local main branch up to GitHub.
Or git push origin feature add new report to push that feature branch.
Exactly. Now, your commits, your branches, they exist both locally and safely backed up on GitHub. And if you're collaborating, your team can see them.
Okay, pushing sends changes up to GitHub. What about proposing changes formally? Like asking someone to merge your feature branch into main.
That's where pull requests come in. or PRs.
Heard of those.
A pull request is basically you saying on GitHub, hey, look at the changes on my feature read new report branch. I think they're ready. Can we review them and pull them into the main branch?
So it's a request to pull your changes into another branch.
Precisely. After you push your branch to GitHub, you'll often see a button right there on GitHub to create pull request. You click that, add some notes explaining the changes, maybe tag reviewers.
And then your team can look at the code, leave comments, discuss it right there on GitHub.
Yep. It's the hub for code review. If everyone agrees the changes are good, someone with permission clicks the merge pull request button.
And poof, your feature branch changes are now part of the main branch on GitHub.
Exactly. And then it's good practice to delete the feature branch afterwards, usually with another button click, just to keep things tidy.
Merged and cleaned up.
Nice.
Nice. Okay, one more direction. Getting changes from GitHub back to your local machine. Maybe a teammate merged something important.
Right. You need to pull those changes down. The command is git pull origin branch name. So usually git pull origin main.
Git pull. That fetches the latest from GitHub and tries to merge it into your current local branch.
You got it. It downloads the changes and updates your local files. If your local branch is set up to track the remote one, often just git pull is enough. It keeps your local copy synchronized.
Okay, so the basic loop seems to be make changes locally, stage them with git add, save them with git commit mem message, push them to GitHub with git push origin branch.
If collaborating or backing up,
maybe create a pull request on GitHub for review and merging, and then periodically pull updates from GitHub with git pull.
That's the core workflow in a nutshell. You'll do those steps over and over.
Okay, now let's really connect this to RPA. Why is this so important for, say, a UiPath developer?
Well, for all the reasons we mentioned, but maybe even more intensely. RPA projects can get complex fast. Lots of workflows, dependencies, configuration files.
And often multiple developers working on different parts of the same automation process.
Exactly. Without something like Git, you end up with invoice process v2 John's copy final.zip and invoice process v3 Sarah edits.zip. It's chaos waiting to happen. Manually merging that. Nightmare.
Been there. Not fun.
Git provides that structured history. Those save points, those commits. After you finish a key part of your UiPath automation, you commit it. Git commit-mm. Implemented invoice data extraction logic. Now you have a record.
And if a next change breaks something unexpectedly,
you can easily check the history, see what changed, or even revert back to that previous working commit while you figure out the bug. It's a huge safety net for complex automation.
So less fear when making changes, knowing you can always step back.
Totally. And GitHub or GitLab, etc., acts as that central cloud backup for your entire UiPath project's Git history. Remember, Git is local first. GitHub is the remote copy.
Right. Git on your machine, GitHub in the cloud. So the common UiPath actions translate to commit saves to local Git history. Push sends that local history up to GitHub. And sometimes you might see a commit and push option.
Yeah, combines the two steps, saves locally, then immediately sends it remote. Efficient.
Now, does UiPath Studio help with this, or do you always need the command line?
Good news there. UiPath Studio has a really nice built-in Git integration. Makes it much easier for day-to-day stuff.
How does that work?
In the project panel in Studio, you can usually right-click your project root folder and find an option like Add to Source Control and choose Git.
Okay.
If you haven't already run Git in it, UiPath might do that for you. Then it typically stages all your project files automatically. It'll prompt you for that first commit comment.
So it handles the git init and git add for you?
Often, yeah, for that initial setup. Then it'll ask for the remote repository path. That's where you paste the URL from the GitHub repo you created.
The repository URL we used with git remote add origin before.
Exactly. UiPath might ask for your GitHub username and password or token 2 to authenticate. Once that's set up, you commit, you push, often just using buttons right inside UiPath Studio. You'll see icons indicating file status, options to commit, push, pull, even manage branches sometimes.
That sounds much more integrated for an RPA developer. They might not even need the command line for basic tasks.
For a lot of the common workflow, maybe not. The integration handles the underlying Git commands. You see your files appear on your GitHub account after you commit and push from Studio.
What about getting a project from GitHub, like joining a team?
Also integrated. In Studio, usually under a team tab or similar, there's a clone repository option.
Clone. That means download, right?
Yep. It downloads a full copy of a remote repository. You give it the GitHub URL of project, tell it where on your computer to save it, the checkout folder path, provide your credentials again,
and click clone.
Click open with clone or similar. UiPath downloads the entire project and opens it right up in the studio, ready for you to work on.
Good.
Super smooth way to get started on an existing team project.
Nice. Okay, one last thing on the UiPath side. What about conflicts? If two developers change the same .xaml file in different ways on different branches.
Yeah, that can happen when you merge branches. Git detects that the same lines were changed differently and flags it as a conflict.
Does UiPath help resolve those?
Usually, yes. The Git integration within Studio likely provides a way to see the conflicting files. It'll often show you your changes, their changes side by side, and let you choose which version to keep or manually edit the file to combine the changes correctly.
So a visual merge tool right inside UiPath.
Typically, yeah. It makes resolving those tricky situations much easier than trying to decipher conflict markers in a raw text file, especially for visual things like workflow files. It follows the same Git principles, just with a helpful UI.
Okay, that makes sense. The core Git concepts apply, but UiPath provides a specialized interface.
Exactly. So just to quickly recap those core actions again. Creating repos.git it locally, new repo on GitHub website. Connecting.git remote, add origin URL. Working locally. Making changes, git add to stage, git commit to save. Branching, git checkout.groupb to create and switch. Git checkout to switch between existing ones. Checking.git status is your friend. Seeing differences, git diff, undoing, git reset to unstage, git reset head 1 to undo the last commit carefully.
And interacting with GitHub. Git push to send changes up, git pull to get changes down, and pull requests on the website for merging.
You nailed it. That's the heart of it.
It really seems like learning Git and GitHub is, well, non-negotiable for serious project work today, especially in RPA.
I completely agree. The ability to track everything, go back in time, collaborate cleanly, it just makes your life so much easier and your automations more robust and maintainable in the long run. Saved you from potentially disastrous mistakes, too.
It moves you from just building automations to managing them professionally throughout their life cycle. That history, the collaboration, it's foundational.
So if you've been listening, we really hope you'll take this and, dive in, set up Git, create a GitHub account, try it out on a small personal project first, maybe even a simple UiPath sequence.
Yeah, don't be afraid to experiment. Create branches, make commits, push to a test repository on GitHub. Get a feel for that workflow. The more you use it, the more natural it becomes.
See how it can streamline your own process. It really is worth the initial learning curve.
Absolutely.
And as promised, all the links and commands we sort of touched on today, we'll put those in the description box below for easy reference.
Happy automation.